In my previous life, my husband faked his death to trick me into drinking poison and dying for him. I was sent to the ICU but couldn't be saved, yet he just had his stomach pumped and was as lively as ever at the funeral. He wept bitterly before my grave. Darling, why didn't you let me go with you? Why did you replace my medicine with cough syrup? Everyone comforted him, praising him as a rare good man in this world, yet the very next day, he was passionately entangled with his mistress in the bed we had shared for 3 years. My husband whispered affectionately, "Darling, that woman is dead, and we can finally be together openly. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to enjoy for a lifetime." I opened my eyes again. I've gone back to the day my husband tricked me into drinking the poison. Wife, I've tried my best. I can't stay with you any longer, but I'm so unwilling. I can't bear to leave you. Seeing you in such pain every day, it truly breaks my heart. I know you can't bear to part with me either. My husband grabbed my hand and kissed the back of it tenderly. "Darling, come with me. Let's continue being husband and wife on the road to the underworld." "Alright." The familiar gentle words struck like a sudden alarm bell, instantly snapping me out of my dazed state. I bit my lower lip tightly and scanned the room. On the nightstand, 2 glasses of dark red liquid stung my eyes. I took 2 deep breaths. Only then did I have to accept the absurd reality that I had actually been reborn in my previous life. My husband was diagnosed with mid to late stage liver cancer, and the prognosis was very grim. Upon learning of his condition, I was utterly heartbroken, my spirit tormented, and I developed severe depression under the dual blows of my husband's pre-death PUA and my depression. In a daze, I picked up the poison before me and drank it all in one gulp. I wanted to follow my husband Jiang Yan to the Yellow Springs together, but then the poison took effect, and I was in such agony I wished for death. Yet he shed his feeble, sickly pretense, poured himself a glass of red wine to celebrate. He mercilessly mocked me for being as foolish as a pig. For half a year, I hadn't even noticed he was pretending to be ill. Only when I was foaming at the mouth, my pupils dilated and unfocused, did he put on an act and call an ambulance for me. In the ICU, I endured the torment of every possible resuscitation method, yet still succumbed to my illness. He, on the other hand, merely had his stomach pumped and emerged completely unscathed. The day after my burial, he was already entwined with his lover in passionate embrace on the very bed we had shared for 3 years. He whispered tenderly, "Darling, that woman Wu Yu is dead. We can finally be together openly now. The fortune she left behind is enough for us to live comfortably for a lifetime." The agonizing memories nearly overwhelmed my sanity. I dug my nails into my palms until they bled crimson, just to restrain the urge to tear him limb from limb. I could only glare furiously at the emaciated Jiang Yan before me, yet he stared fixedly at the 2 cups of dark red liquid and continued, "Darling, do you remember drinking the nuptial wine at our wedding? Drink this, and we can be husband and wife for all eternity in the underworld." Having been reborn, how could I let myself be fooled and deceived by you again? I swore to myself in silence. "In my past life, you faked your death to trick me into following you in death. In this lifetime, I'll make your feigned death a reality too." Seeing my prolonged lack of response, Jiang Yan slightly furrowed his brow, putting on an act of infatuation and pitifulness. He continued to PUA, "Darling, don't you want to share the same quilt in life and the same grave in death with me? Like hell I want to die with you." I was seething with hatred inside, wishing I could immediately pry open his mouth and pour the poison down his throat. Yet on the surface, I pretended to be in utter agony. Life is like a play, who doesn't have a bit of acting skill in them? I sat on the edge of the bed, suppressing my disgust as I took his hand in return. "Of course I remember. Our wedding day was the happiest moment of my life." After saying that, I turned around, picked up the poisoned wine that was originally meant for me, and handed it to him. Then, with a gentle push of my finger, I slid his glass to the opposite side. "Husband, whether you live or die, I will stay by your side, never leaving or abandoning you." He glanced at the nightstand, a satisfied expression appearing on his face. "Wife, you are so good to me. Even if I were to die right now, I would die happy." I lay down beside him, picked up my wine glass, and clinked it with his. "Darling, cheers. I'd be happy to die in your arms." Jiang Yan revealed a triumphant smile, swiftly raised his glass, and downed it in one gulp. Only after confirming he had swallowed the poison did I feel at ease and finish my cough syrup. The next second, Jiang Yan sensed something was wrong because the medicine he drank was bitter. He abruptly sat up, looking at me with murderous eyes. I clung tightly to his waist, not letting him leave. "Darling, where are you going?" Jiang Yan strictly controlled his diet to feign illness. His already pale face lost all color, his eyes filled with terror, his voice trembled as he spoke. It's too bitter. I want some water." I looked at him as if he were a fool. "Bitter? Mine tastes sweet. Jiang Yan was on the verge of tears. To save himself, he had to admit that what we drank was different. He quickly changed his words. I misspoke. It's too sweet. You know I don't like sweet things. I still held on to his waist, not letting him leave. He was so anxious that tears welled up in his eyes, lifting the pillow to search for his phone, but he forgot. He had already drained his phone's battery and snapped the charging cable last night, in the dead of night, he insisted. On cleaning the fish tank and accidentally dropped my phone into the water. I haven't had a chance to get it fixed yet. Looking back now, it was all to delay calling an ambulance. When I started showing signs of poisoning, I pressed against his back, comforting him. Honey, it must be because your body is weak, reacting first and creating an illusion. Just bear with it a little longer, and soon you won't feel the pain anymore. Honey, give me a hug. I'll be with you soon. Jiang Yan desperately pried my hand away. His entire body was trembling as he turned to look at me, pleading, honey, quick, call an ambulance for me. I looked at him in confusion. Why, did you change your mind and don't want to die anymore? But you have cancer, you'll die sooner or later anyway. To be with you, I drank the poison too. Jiang Yan was at a loss for words, pushed me away abruptly, and rushed straight to the bathroom immediately after. I heard him retching violently. He stayed in there for a full 5 minutes, probably unable to vomit anything up. He cursed furiously with a national expletive, staggering out, his face flushed with color. Instead, he shook my shoulders frantically. Call an ambulance for me. Call an ambulance. After saying that, he curled up on the floor in agony. Just as I had managed with great effort to move Jiang Yan onto the bed, the doorbell rang. I curled the corner of my lips. Perfect timing. 3. I didn't go to open the door directly. Instead, I quickly ran to the bathroom and lightly dabbed my lips with my rose red lipstick to create the illusion of poisoning. Holding my chest and grimacing, I opened the door. When my mother-in-law saw it was me opening the door, she froze for a moment. Only after clearly seeing my expression did she secretly let out a sigh of relief. In my previous life, my mother-in-law arrived at this exact time as well, but back then, it was her son Jiang Yan who opened the door for her. She came to deliver local specialties from our hometown. Until the day I died, I was never certain whether her arrival was a coincidence or if it had been premeditated all along. I only remember that Jiang Yan's final phone call this morning was to his mother. Jiang Yan had timed his feigned illness perfectly. Ever since the weather turned cool in August, he had been falling sick. During his treatment, he voluntarily shaved his head. He put on thick layers of clothing and refused to let me touch his body. The reason was that he was afraid I would be heartbroken if I saw it. He even forbade me from telling anyone about his illness because he didn't want others to look at him with strange eyes. Before his death, he emotionally manipulated me into committing suicide for him out of love. After I died, they would say I took my own life because I couldn't bear the torment of depression. Jiang Yan was deeply devoted to me and wanted to die with me. I couldn't bear it, so I secretly replaced his poison with cough syrup. Everyone would praise him as a good man, while blaming me for being overly sensitive and not cherishing life. Where's my precious son? Is he feeling better? My mother-in-law bumped into my shoulder as she squeezed through the door, looking quite haughty. Jiang Yan and I have been married for 3 years without having a child, which has caused my mother-in-law to hold a strong grudge against me. I pretended to cough a couple of times and replied weakly, he's lying inside. Mom, you came just in time. Can I use your phone? Jiang Yan just said he wasn't feeling well and asked me to call an ambulance for him. My mother-in-law casually threw a sack of local specialties on the floor and ran to the bedroom to call for Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan had his back to her and didn't respond. When she came out, she didn't seem the least bit flustered. My mother-in-law gently closed the bedroom door and glanced at me. My son is sleeping soundly. Why call an ambulance? I deliberately clutched my stomach and tried to snatch her bag. Mom, I'm not feeling well either. Let me use your phone for a moment. My mother-in-law leaned away, pressed down my hand, and spoke in a cold tone. Then you must be hungry. I brought Yan's favorite air-dried cured meat. Take a piece out and stew it for him at noon. Mom, I really don't feel well. My mother-in-law acted as if she hadn't heard, sitting on the sofa with her phone and scrolling through short videos. My mother-in-law's attitude made me suspect that she was aware of Jiang Yan's plan to fake his death. At the time, I naively believed that my mother-in-law had genuinely come to visit us. Clutching my stomach, I ran toward the bathroom, shouting as I went, Mom, my stomach hurts. Please make yourself at home. My mother-in-law watched me with a cheerful smile, probably thinking I was about to succumb to the poison. Go ahead and laugh all you want. Call an ambulance now, and your son might still be saved any later, and not even a divine being could save him. After coming out of the bathroom, I returned to the bedroom. Looking closely, Jiang Yan's body was trembling slightly. In my previous life, I remained conscious until I was carried into the emergency room. I could feel the pain in my body, hear people talking, but I couldn't move or speak. Leaning over the bedside, I wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and chuckled, "My dear husband, I know you can hear me. It must be very uncomfortable now, right? I want to call an ambulance for you, but your mother won't allow it, and there's nothing I can do about her. I know you're faking your illness, and I know you want to fake your death to kill me, take all our assets, and spend the rest of your life with your mother and your little lover. Unfortunately, I secretly swapped your syrup, so your fake death is about to become real. You must be wondering how I know all this, but I have no intention of telling you. You just need to know that what you're suffering now is your own retribution. Don't worry. I won't let your mother or your lover off either. This is what you all owe me." Jiang Yan struggled to let out a foul breath from his mouth. 2 lines of tears streamed down from the corners of his eyes. I considerately wiped them dry for him. "Don't worry. I won't let you die so easily. I'll call an ambulance for you right away." I suddenly let out a scream hearing the noise. My mother-in-law immediately ran over. "What's going on? Why are you making such a racket? Don't wake up my son." I pointed at Jiang Yan, my hand trembling uncontrollably. Mom, Jiang Yan, he's foaming at the mouth." Only then did my mother-in-law turn Jiang Yan over to take a closer look at his face. By this point, Jiang Yan was already in shock, unable to speak, yet his face wore an expression of intense agony. My mother-in-law didn't show any tension or panic. Instead, she looked uncertainly at her son, then at me. She looked at me, then back at her son. A doubt stirring in her mind. "He's just sleeping soundly, isn't he, even in this state?" My mother-in-law still refused to give up on their fake death plan. "Oh, she's waiting for the poison to take effect on me." I was extremely anxious. "Mom, let's send Jiang Yan to the hospital. Even if he's going to pass away, at least let him suffer less." My mother-in-law glared at me irritably and hesitantly took out her phone. "I'd better make a call and ask Dr. Lan." Unnoticeably, a cold smile appeared on my face. Besides me and my mother-in-law, there was one other person who knew Jiang Yan was sick. That was his mistress, the Dr. Lan my mother-in-law mentioned. Lan Kiki. I never expected that even my mother-in-law, who has lived in the countryside for years, knows about Lan Kiki's existence. "If you start it, don't blame me for finishing it. I want them to watch helplessly as Jiang Yan dies, yet they can do nothing about it." For Lan Kiki opened a psychological counseling clinic near my residential area. In less than 10 minutes, Lan Kiki arrived wearing her work uniform, with her still barely noticeable pregnant belly. Jiang Yan has always believed that the child she is carrying is his. Yet after 3 years of marriage, there's been no sign of a baby in my belly. This is precisely the main reason Jiang Yan feigned illness to trick me into a suicide pact. She looked at me, her brow tightly furrowed. She rushed into the bedroom, frantic and practiced. The next second, she froze upon seeing Jiang Yan's dark purple complexion, one hand clutching her stomach, the other bracing against the bedside. She slowly slid down to sit on the floor before the bed. She kept shaking Jiang Yan, her eyes bloodshot. "How could this happen? How could this happen? Call an ambulance. Jiang Yan has been poisoned." Watching Lan Kiki frantically perform basic first aid on Jiang Yan, only then did mother-in-law panic. Her mouth was open, but not a single sound came out. She was completely stunned, the color draining from her face in an instant. I looked at them in confusion, but I drank it too. Why am I fine? Suddenly realizing something, mother-in-law slapped me across the face. "You useless, barren woman, you're going to be the death of my son." Covering my face, I cried out in grievance. He was the one who wanted to drink the medicine. What's wrong with me wanting to stay with Jiang Yan? Why did you hit me? My mother-in-law slapped her thigh, wailing loudly as she scrambled over to Jiang Yan. "It's over. It's over. It's all over." I snatched the phone she had been guarding so fiercely and called an ambulance, but deep down, I knew it was already too late. Jiang Yan, he couldn't be saved. "My son, you must not be in any danger." The ambulance rushed Jiang Yan to the ICU for emergency treatment. Just like in my previous life, every available resuscitation method and instrument was used. Although I was unconscious at the time, I still retained a sliver of awareness. Being turned over, pressed, intubated, having my stomach pumped, and shocked, that feeling was worse than dying on the spot. The hospital was bustling with people at this moment, making it the perfect opportunity for me to sever ties. I leaned weakly against the wall, my eyes fixed on the emergency room, and cried out in anguish, "Honey, you must not die. You asked me to die with you, so why did you replace my poison with cough syrup? If I had known you would do this, I would never have agreed to die with you. Even if you are sick and don't have many days left, as long as you are alive, you are my spiritual support. If you leave like this, how will I live my days from now on?" I cried my heart out, utterly devastated in a hospital setting, where life and death partings can happen at any moment. It's easiest for people to empathize. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone in the crowd secretly wiping away tears. I never thought there are still people willing to die for their loved ones nowadays. This girl must have loved her husband deeply. Whether her husband loved her that much is uncertain. Didn't you hear her say it was her husband who asked her to die with him? Exactly. Even if someone is terminally ill, they shouldn't be so heartless as to ask their wife to die with them. But he replaced the poison with syrup, which shows he didn't truly want his wife to die. Maybe he had some difficulties. The onlookers cast sympathetic glances at me. Just then, the doctor came out of the emergency room. My mother-in-law and Lon Kiki immediately went up to him, pushing me, the legitimate wife, aside. Lon Kiki nervously pinched her fingers. Doctor, my friend is saved, right? Doctor, is my son okay? Can I go in and see him? The doctor glanced at them, shaking his head helplessly with a sigh. Too much time was lost. We did our best. Please accept our condolences. 5. It felt like a bolt from the blue struck her head. Lon Keek's tense shoulders and back instantly slumped. His body swayed uncontrollably, and he barely managed to steady himself against the wall. The mother-in-law broke down. Her deeply wrinkled face was etched with disbelief. She desperately clutched at the doctor, her voice trembling. Impossible. How could my son be dead? You quacks, you killed my son. Give me back my son. The doctor was exasperated by the mother-in-law's unreasonable behavior, but considering her grief over losing her son, I still patiently explained. Mom, I shouted, once again drawing the attention of everyone passing by. If you hadn't stopped me from calling an ambulance, how could my husband have been beyond saving? You killed Jiang Yen, you killed your own son. My mother-in-law's face was streaked with tears as she slowly turned her head, no longer wanting to pretend. She suddenly rushed over and slapped me hard again. That's bullshit. My son didn't have to die. You forced my son to drink the poison. You're the one who killed him. Give me back my son's life. My mother-in-law suddenly turned the tables, shifting all the blame onto me, but I wouldn't let her wicked scheme succeed again, covering my face. I retorted, I didn't. I loved Jiang Yen. Why would I force him to take poison? He had liver cancer, and you were afraid he'd be a burden, so you wanted him dead. You vicious woman. Not only have you failed to give our Jiang family a single child, but you also poisoned my son. Today, I will beat you to death to avenge my son. I let out a heavy sigh of relief. This foolish old woman's self-incrimination undoubtedly helped clear my suspicion once again. However, more and more onlookers were left bewildered. No way, this plot twist is too shocking. That would be murder. I actually felt sorry for this girl just a moment ago. There are no filial children by a long sickbed. Taking care of a patient is truly exhausting. I know from personal experience. But that doesn't justify poisoning someone. Hard to judge. The human heart is unfathomable. It's really impossible to tell who's telling the truth and who's lying. Before I could even open my mouth to question her, the doctor was the first to freeze, his brow furrowing seriously. Are you mistaken? The deceased did not have liver cancer. Apart from organ failure caused by poisoning, all bodily functions were healthy. I grabbed the doctor and wouldn't let go. What? My husband didn't have liver cancer. He's clearly been sick for 6 months, undergoing chemotherapy at the hospital every month. Look, here's his diagnosis report. I took out the diagnosis report from my bag that showed Jiang Yen had been diagnosed with liver cancer. The doctor took just one glance, and his expression changed instantly. Nonsense. This is just a piece of paper without even a hospital stamp. What kind of diagnosis report is this? I was utterly stunned. Mom, did you know Jiang Yen was faking his illness? Why did he pretend to be sick to trick me into dying with him? This morning, seeing his cup of medicine was too full, I felt sorry for all the suffering he had endured over the past 6 months. So I insisted on taking his cup instead. If we hadn't switched, wouldn't I be the one dead now? My mother-in-law, lost in grief, ignored me completely. She sat on the floor, murmuring in a daze. That's not how it was. Xiao Yan told me that no matter what happened, I shouldn't interfere. He had his own plans. I thought he was pretending. The situation has taken another unexpected turn. The onlookers were utterly shocked, their jaws dropping in disbelief. Can someone please make sense of this? What kind of ridiculous soap opera plot is this? Her husband wasn't sick, but he was poisoned. Someone must have poisoned him. We can't just take her word for it. But have you considered this? If her husband was perfectly fine, why would he pretend to be sick, and with an incurable liver cancer, no less? How was he planning to end this without dying? Is it possible that her husband had some ulterior motive and wanted to fake his own death? seeing that they could no longer keep up the pretense. The mother-in-law and Lan Kiki suppressed their grief and dispersed the crowd. At that moment, Jiang Yan's body was also wheeled out. The mother-in-law held Jiang Yan, crying her heart out, looking at the rigid body under the white cloth. I finally let out a sigh of relief. It was as if the suffering I endured because of him in my previous life suddenly felt lighter. Seeing her in such unbearable pain, the onlookers dispersed, no longer gathering around. 6. My mother-in-law told me to get lost and forbade me from accompanying them to the crematorium, although I couldn't be bothered to collect the remains of this scumbag either. But thinking about what might happen next, I won't feel completely at ease until I see him turn to ashes. I stubbornly followed them onto the car heading to the crematorium. Only after seeing Jiang Yan being pushed into the incinerator did I leave quietly, feeling relieved. Upon returning home, I first packed up all of Jiang Yan's belongings and threw them into the trash bin downstairs. Then, I transferred all the savings from our joint account to my parents under the guise of alimony. Jiang Yan refused to divorce me, instead choosing to fake his death to trick me into committing suicide, intending to kill me. Isn't it just because he wanted to monopolize all my assets since he showed no mercy? Don't blame me for being ruthless. I run a beauty salon, with a net income of several million each year. Over the past 6 months that Jiang Yan has been sick, he has taken at least 200,000 in treatment fees from me every month. Whenever he wanted to try folk remedies or special medications, I would give him hundreds of thousands or even millions without hesitation, but he never let me accompany him to his medical appointments, afraid that I might hear bad news and become too heartbroken. Since he wasn't actually sick, that money must have been siphoned away by him ever since he fell ill. I was once deeply depressed. The thought of a future without him would make me break down in tears. I loved him so much that I was willing to give up my right to become a mother for him. He never knew that my 3 years of infertility were not due to me, but because he has oligospermia. For the sake of his pride, I hid the real reason. I just used the right time hasn't come to comfort him. In just 2 months, I had tormented myself into depression. I also had no heart to run the beauty salon anymore. For half a year, it was basically in a state of monthly losses. I never thought the person I loved so deeply would betray me, fool around with other women, and even have a child. I knew that after Jiang Yan's death, my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki would never let it go. I asked a friend to introduce me to a lawyer who is particularly skilled at litigation. Strive to ensure that my mother-in-law and Lan Kiki can't gain any advantage from me. The 3 million Jiang Yan swindled from me must also be recovered. 7. Everything is ready except for the east wind. This time it's my turn to pour myself a glass of red wine to celebrate. My gaze wandered, scanning the surroundings. Jiang Yan, oh Jiang Yan, are you also like me, filled with unwillingness, your soul returning, so close to success, yet stumbling at the last moment? You must hate me to the core. Ha ha ha, why am I so happy? That night, whether it was the effect of alcohol or finally letting go of my worries, I didn't take my antidepressants and still had a peaceful night's sleep. On the 3rd day, my mother-in-law returned holding Jiang Yan's ashes. After 2 days apart, she seemed to have aged a decade in an instant. Her expression bleak and defeated. Her half-gray hair had turned completely white. Following behind her was Lan Kiki, her face haggard with exhaustion. The two supported each other, with heavy dark circles under their eyes, likely having had little proper rest these past few days. Lan Kiki had deliberately worn a form-fitting knit dress today, even wrapped in her coat. Her small baby bump was distinctly prominent. I was slightly taken aback, surprised that my mother-in-law didn't immediately lash out at me upon seeing me again. As it turned out, less than 2 minutes after they entered, 2 police officers also showed up at the door. So that's how it is. Who called the police? My mother-in-law, holding the urn, her eyes bloodshot, looked at me with a gaze that seemed ready to devour me. Officers, you must uphold justice for me. This venomous woman poisoned my son with toxic drugs, causing him to die in agony. Quickly arrest her and poison her too, with the most potent poison. The police officer's faces darkened almost to the shade of coal. I mourned my mother-in-law's ignorance for a second. Officers, please don't mind her. My husband just died, and my mother-in-law can't handle the shock, so she's talking nonsense. My husband was indeed poisoned, but he poisoned himself. It has nothing to do with me. My mother-in-law gritted her teeth and tried to come at me again. You're talking crap. If you slander my son again, I'll tear your mouth apart. Why would my son poison himself when he had a perfectly good life? I explained sincerely and calmly. Officers, my husband didn't mean to poison himself. He meant to poison me. By a twist of fate, I drank his medicine, which is how I escaped, and he faked an illness and deceived me for half a year. I calculated that in just these 6 months, she took nearly 3 million in treatment fees from me. This is the fake diagnosis he gave me, And these are the transfer records I compiled, officer. You must help me investigate where all this money went. When I said the last sentence, I kept staring at my mother-in-law and Lon Keek's faces. Lon Kiki showed a momentary panic in her expression, but quickly returned to normal. She just pursed her lips tightly, saying nothing. My mother-in-law was in tears, and compared to the day before yesterday at the hospital, she had a new explanation this time. My son simply grew tired of you, a hen that can't lay eggs, and wanted to leave you, but you refused to divorce and wouldn't give my son his share of the money. So he pretended to be sick. After you found out, you heartlessly poisoned my son to death and even slandered him, claiming he wanted to harm you. How could you be so heartless? My son must have been blind to marry such a venomous woman like you. The mother-in-law gave Lon Kiki a meaningful look. She finally couldn't hold back and spoke up. Officer, Jiang Yan is my patient. He often comes to my studio for psychological counseling. He has mentioned to me multiple times that his marriage is falling apart and he wants a divorce. But his wife is too domineering and threatened to kill him if he divorces her. I knew they wouldn't let me off easily, but I never expected them to join forces and fabricate evidence to frame me. I pinched my palm and squeezed out 2 tears. Officer, I know you need solid evidence to handle cases. I can't prove that my husband faked his illness and death to trick me into committing suicide and trying to kill me, but they also have no evidence to prove that I poisoned Jiang Yan. As long as I can prove that bottle of poison was bought by my husband, can I clear my name? The police officer nodded, saying that as long as I could prove the poison was purchased and successfully received by Jiang Yan, it would prove my innocence. The problem is, Jiang Yan's phone is missing. I searched every corner of the house but couldn't find Jiang Yan's phone. However, my suggestion severely shocked the person who hid the phone. The police officer said that if this case wasn't Jiang Yan's suicide by poison, it would involve criminal facts, and we needed to go to the police station to give statements. They thought that by colluding in private and calling the police, they could convict me. Little did they expect to end up lifting a stone only to drop it on their own feet. Now, by admitting that Jiang Yan died by taking poison, they have just committed the crime of slandering me if they don't admit it. And Jiang Yan's phone is eventually found, revealing that he indeed purchased and used the poison privately. Coupled with his prior act of feigning illness to swindle money, he would be suspected of plotting against me. Both of their faces turned pale. Even if they hid Jiang Yan's phone, the police could still trace some of his consumption records. The mother-in-law may not know the power of modern investigative techniques, but Lon Kiki couldn't possibly be unaware. The mother-in-law was about to say something when Lon Kiki suddenly grabbed her arm and pulled her back. The mother-in-law stumbled backward, nearly dropping the urn in her hands. Lon Kiki quickly caught her and said anxiously, "Auntie has a heart condition. She hasn't rested properly these past few days while handling Jiang Yan's funeral arrangements. She's probably having an attack." Catching the hint in Lon Kiki's eyes, the mother-in-law suddenly rolled her eyes back and pretended to faint. My heart hurts. The medicine, it's in my bag." Lon Kiki hurriedly took a fast acting heart relief pill from the bag and fed it to her. The 2 police officers helped her lie down on the sofa. He called me aside and asked a few questions privately. When I returned, my mother-in-law had already calmed down. She also changed her statement to the police officers. My mother-in-law gritted her teeth and apologized to the police. "I'm an old woman, getting senile, and I can't remember many things clearly. My Xiao Yan might have really committed suicide. It has nothing to do with my daughter-in-law." I couldn't accept my son's death for a moment, so I took my resentment out on my daughter-in-law. I apologized to her. "Daughter-in-law, for the sake of Xiao Yan just having passed away, please forgive me." Okay. In the end, they didn't dare to confront the truth head-on and chose to reconcile in a way that might incur the smallest cost. Admitting that her son died by suicide must have made her heart bleed. If I had been reborn just a moment earlier, I could have thrown the evidence of her son harming me right in their faces. At this point, I can only take things one step at a time. I'd like to see what tricks they still have up their sleeves. 9. Unexpectedly, the next second, Lon Kiki walked over, puffing out her big belly with tears in her eyes. She called out to me sorrowfully, "Sister Yaya." I got goosebumps all over and instinctively stepped back to keep a safe distance from her. "Sister Yaya, things have come to this point, and I can no longer keep hiding it. I am not only Brother Zhang's psychologist, but also his beloved." I deliberately covered my mouth, feigning a hurt expression. "What? Jiang Yan actually kept a mistress behind my back?" Lon Kiki's face instantly flushed red, biting her lower lip in shame and anger. "I know you have always deeply loved Brother Jiang, so you should know that his greatest wish in this life is to have a child of his own. What I am carrying in my womb is Brother Zhang's only bloodline. Please don't blame Brother Jiang, he kept it from you because he was afraid you'd be heartbroken. I let out a cold laugh, afraid I'd be heartbroken, so he faked his death to trick me into following him in death. Do you even believe that when you say it? Lon Kiki glanced awkwardly at the two police officers beside her and continued, Sister Yaya, please don't joke like that anymore. A day as husband and wife brings 100 days of grace. Brother Jiang is gone now. Sister Yaya, both auntie and I hope you can accept this child and let them inherit the legacy they deserve. Humph, the fox's tail is finally showing. My mother-in-law also sat up. To get the inheritance, she swallowed all her anger. Yeah, the child in Keek's belly is the only seedling of our old Jiang family. For the sake of your many years of marital affection with Xiaoyan, please acknowledge this child. I thought for a moment and softened my stance, sighing with emotion. If this child really is Jiang Yan's, of course I have nothing to say. My mother-in-law and Lon Kiki exchanged a glance, secretly relieved, and smiled obsequiously at me. But, I frowned and pursed my lips. Jiang Yan is dead. How can you prove that the child in your belly is his? Everything must be based on evidence. Without legal proof, I will not acknowledge it. Lon Kiki gritted her back teeth, nearly causing her mother-in-law to faint from anger again. Lon Kiki wiped away tears. Feeling wronged, I've only ever had Brother Jiang in my life. If it's not his child, whose could it be? How would I know? You're so empathetic, and you've seen so many male patients. The only way to prove its relationship with Jiang Yan now is probably through a paternity test. The mother-in-law slapped the sofa hard, unable to control her rising voice. Xiaoyan has already turned to ashes. Where do you expect us to get a paternity test for you? I smiled lightly and calmly. Then there's nothing to be done. Who told you not to think it through before cremating Jiang Yan? Jiang Yan just died. And you immediately bring a strange, pregnant woman to claim a share of the inheritance. I strongly suspect you're after my money. If I easily agree to give part of the inheritance to the child of the mistress you brought today, will you be back tomorrow with mistress number 4 or 5 to grab more money? My mother-in-law jumped 3 feet high, glaring at me with a ferocious expression. Nonsense. I say he is, so he is. I only recognize this grandson. Little Yan told me before he died. The child in Keek's belly is his. It's just a paternity test, isn't it? I'll do it with him, the police officer reminded from the side. Only by presenting the specimen of the person whose relationship is being identified can the appraisal result have legal significance. My mother-in-law couldn't hold back anymore, panting with anger. I asked you here to uphold justice for us, not to help her deal with me. I was almost amused by the absurdity. Did she think the police station was her family's property? 10 In the end, my mother-in-law had no other choice and could only claim the portion of the inheritance that belonged to her. As they entered, I sent a message to my high-priced, specially hired lawyer. In the time it took for that scuffle just now, she had already appeared at my doorstep. Based on the asset information I provided her, a property division agreement has already been drafted. The house and car are my premarital property and have nothing to do with Jiang Yan. After marriage, he asked me to add his name to the property deed, and I happily agreed. However, at my parents' insistence, we signed an additional agreement. If Jiang Yan causes the marriage to break down due to personal reasons, he will not be entitled to ownership of the property. Now, I truly admire my parents' foresight. There is not a single cent left in Jiang Yan's account. A week ago, he withdrew cash multiple times, but where it ultimately went remains unknown. He only gives his mother-in-law some money during holidays, so that money was most likely given to Lon Kiki. When my mother-in-law heard that only 38 yuan and 20 cents remained in my account, she completely lost it. Impossible. How much does your beauty salon earn every month? Do you think I don't know? You're transferring assets and abusing the elderly. I'll sue you. I made a please gesture. Go ahead and sue. Anyway, it's just these 19 yuan and 10 cents. Take it or leave it. Over the years, Jiang Yan has taken quite a bit of money from me to give to you as filial support. You should know when to be content. Think about all the things you've done to me. How dare you try to bargain with me? My mother-in-law was so angry she was panting heavily. I grinned widely and transferred 19 yuan and 10 cents to her. After the police left, my mother-in-law and Lon Kiki stubbornly refused to leave my house to spite me. They even placed the urn on the altar in the living room where I worship the god of wealth. They declared they would hold Jiang Yan's 7th-day memorial ceremony in my home, claiming only then could he rest in peace. They also demanded I pay my mother-in-law 20,000 yuan per month in support. If I didn't give it, they would stay in my house forever. I've already died once. Why would I fear these demons and monsters of hers? I grabbed the urn and rushed toward the bathroom. Dare to block my god of wealth's path. Today, you'll become scrap in the septic tank. My mother-in-law was so frightened that she hurriedly snatched it away, never daring to keep the urn where I could see it again later. Lon Kiki left, but my mother-in-law remained at my house, stubbornly holding her ground. After the security guard drove her out, she crouched at my doorstep, clutching the urn. She wandered around the neighborhood like a madwoman, telling everyone that I had poisoned her son and refused to share the inheritance with her, because I hadn't properly managed the beauty salon for over half a year. Many clients were lost, and I was nearly facing bankruptcy these past few days. I've been staying at the shop, planning promotional activities to win back old customers, and I neglected to drive my mother-in-law away. My mother-in-law is domineering but not very bright. She has been waging a protracted guerrilla war against me, slandering me everywhere. Undoubtedly with Lon Kiki masterminding it from behind the scenes. In just a few short days, I became the utterly depraved, sinister, and cunning venomous woman in everyone's mouth. Everyone who sees me treats me like a vicious criminal, avoiding me as if I were a plague. 11. In private, I went to see Lon Kiki once. My personal lawyer has already investigated for me and confirmed that Jiang Yan did indeed transfer the money to Lon Kiki. I demanded that she return the 3 million Jiang Yan transferred to her as soon as possible. Otherwise we would have to proceed through legal channels. Lon Kiki completely shed her gentle demeanor from that day, adopting an arrogant attitude and sneering at me with contempt. They mocked me for having no evidence and called me a fool with too much money, so I hired a private investigator to look into her again later. My mother-in-law gradually shifted her battleground from my residential complex to my beauty salon. The clients I had worked so hard to maintain would be harassed by her as soon as they stepped outside. She would always clutch an urn, ranting and raving about how I was responsible for her son's death. This caused the clients I had just managed to win back to completely cut ties with me and demand refunds. Even my employees were so scared they grabbed their things and ran. Just when I had reached my breaking point, I received several photos from the private investigator. When I threw the photos of Lon Kiki having ambiguous private meetings with other men to my mother-in-law, she still refused to believe it. Later, I showed her Jiang Yan's oligospermia report. It was an inspection report with all the necessary stamps and signatures. I told her with certainty that the child in Lon Kiki's belly was not Jiang Yan's. My mother-in-law instantly transformed into a raging beast. She stormed furiously toward Lon Kiki's psychological therapy room. The next day, a malicious mutual assault and injury incident occurred in our jurisdiction. When I was notified by the police and arrived at the hospital, my mother-in-law was undergoing emergency treatment in the ICU. Lon Kiki was also rushed into the operating room due to a miscarriage. The 2 police officers who received me were the same ones as last time. This time, their expressions when looking at me carried a hint of sympathy. It turned out that my mother-in-law had chased Lon Kiki to the consultation room that day to question her about the child. Knowing that my mother-in-law was domineering and difficult to deal with, she coaxed her and managed to calm her down. The next day, my mother-in-law brought her some soup she had prepared, only to find her being intimate with a man. And that man was the one from the photo I had shown her. Furious, my mother-in-law poured the entire pot of hot soup over both of them. Seeing that the truth was exposed, Lon Ka no longer wanted to hide. She directly revealed that the other man was her boyfriend, and Jiang Yan was merely a tool for her to make money. The child she was carrying was not Jiang Yan's, but her boyfriend's. The mother-in-law was so furious that she kicked her in the stomach. Blood was seen immediately. Unable to contain her anger, the mother-in-law also exposed the truth. Jiang Yan had faked his death to trick me into committing suicide for love, intending to kill me so he could be with her. As she beat her, she lamented how unworthy her son was. He had abandoned such a good and capable wife, only to ruin his life for a shameless, habitual homewrecker. Even risked their life. Lon Kiki's boyfriend directly lifted the mother-in-law and threw her to the ground, beat her for over 10 minutes. The mother-in-law suffered multiple fractures and was unconscious when rescued. In the end, the mother-in-law could not be saved. Covered with a white sheet, like Jiang Yan, she was wheeled out of the ICU emergency room. I sued Lon Kiki and her boyfriend in court. 3 months later, Lon Kiki not only had to repay my 3 million debt but was also sentenced to 5 years in prison for her involvement in Jiang Yan's plot to murder me. Her boyfriend was sentenced to life imprisonment for the crime of intentional homicide. With this, the counterattack against the injustices suffered in the previous life has completely concluded. From now on, my life truly begins in this lifetime. I will live freely and brilliantly. End of story. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next story is even more exciting. My husband is as indifferent as a chrysanthemum, yet when my parents used connections to find him a job, he railed against the harm bureaucracy inflicts on society. He got into trouble and couldn't graduate, so I gave gifts to his advisor. He turned around and reported me, saying I was encouraging unethical practices. I worked hard to manage the household, yet he said, "Don't be too utilitarian in life." After 60 years of marriage, his only contribution was avoiding conflict and contention. But after I passed away, before the first week of mourning had even ended, he couldn't wait to marry his first love, writing 60 years of separation. A love letter could hardly express the song of longing. It infuriated me so much I came back to life, and when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day we got our marriage certificate at 23. Hold the wedding. I'm going to take the postgraduate entrance exam, in an attempt to win me back, he said. I'm tired of repeating that my relationship with Einar is innocent. I rolled my eyes and sneered. What the hell are you talking about, strong bro? At the age of 83, I died of illness before my first week memorial had even passed. My husband of 60 years grandly married his first love, Xiaoyin. It made me laugh in anger. Xiaoyin was far inferior to me when she was young, and now in old age, she's downright hideous. Old man, you must really be desperate to go for that. You can even bring yourself to kiss it. Thinking back carefully, there were many suspicious points between Linqing and Xiaoyin. They had been in intermittent contact for 60 years, and finally managed to outlast me. He married her and brought her into the house I had bought. They invited a house full of guests, so many that the living room couldn't even hold them all. To make room for their wedding photos and red candles, they simply moved my memorial portrait out. Lin Cheng's face showed no trace of a man who had just lost his wife. He was beaming with joy. Of course, he was marrying the woman he loved most in his life. I still remember when we got married, he said. Let's skip the wedding banquet. My personal marriage isn't a big deal. There's no need to waste everyone's time and energy. Looking back now, he probably looked down on me, thinking it was too shameful to marry a woman reeking of money, so it had to be done in secret. Touch it, only then can his reputation be preserved. To thank the guests, Lin Qing played the qin, and Xiaoyin danced to the music. He played slowly, and she walked unsteadily, truly like a couple who had endured hardships and finally reconciled. I was with him for 60 years, and he never played the qin for me once. I once asked him to, but he said the qin should be played for a soulmate, so his soulmate was Xiaoyin alone from beginning to end. Lin Qing, your first wife is watching from the heavens. I wanted to scream, to roar, but I couldn't make a sound. It was time to speak. With tears in his eyes, he said, Zhao Min was too utilitarian. I've lived my whole life too tired, and I haven't followed my true heart. Einar has a gentle and quiet nature. She was truly my perfect match. If it weren't for Zhao Min forcing us apart, we would have been together long ago. Fortunately, it's still not too late. Xiaoyin, I love you. In this life, I am only your husband. The old couple held each other's hands tightly, gazing at each other's wrinkled, aged faces. On Lin Cheng's face was a depth of emotion I had never seen before. Suddenly, I felt how ridiculous I was. After marriage, I called him husband, but he frowned and told me to just call him by his name, saying it was too mushy. While I was alive, I never once heard him say I love you. After I died, I heard him say it to another woman. Finally, amid everyone's blessings, he wrote in proper regular script, 60 years of separation like swallows in flight. A brocade letter cannot convey the song of longing. With that one sentence, he negated all my years of hard work, every minute and second of those 60 years. He was thinking of his first love. Souls are not supposed to have tears, but as I laughed and laughed, I suddenly felt my cheeks grow wet. Perfect. I truly was a blind fool. I cried my heart out. The 60 years of betrayal could never be reclaimed. Suddenly my heart clenched, and I fainted from the pain. When I woke up again, I had returned to the day we registered our marriage. That year I was only 23. My family was well off. My father worked in the transportation system, and my mother came from a scholarly family. A renowned painter. Lin Qing came from a poor background, having tested into University A from a small county town. I had always admired the serene, indifferent to fame and fortune aura about him, and it took me a year of pursuing to finally win him over. I took him to meet my parents, but they disapproved of our marriage. Lin Qing stood up and left, telling me not to contact him anymore, as he didn't want to be seen as someone climbing the social ladder by marrying into wealth. I knelt before my parents, crying and pleading, repeatedly assuring them that he was truly an ambitious and outstanding young man who would never rely on my family after marriage. As soon as my parents relented, I rushed to find Lin Qing with the good news. He responded indifferently, really, you didn't have to go through all that. It's not like I'm desperate to marry you. At the time, I thought he must be upset, so I tried everything I could to cheer him up. He reluctantly agreed. Fine then. We got married right after graduation. He tried to find a job but kept getting let go before even finishing the probation period. He had a high opinion of himself, believing That is a graduate from a prestigious university, he shouldn't be doing menial tasks. He also had a habit of meddling in others' affairs and couldn't stand seeing his superiors. He often reprimands his subordinates and frequently interferes in their work. His resume wasn't particularly impressive in City A. His parents claimed they wouldn't help us at all, but behind the scenes, they quietly pulled strings for him, hoping he could land a good job and that I could have a better life too. He managed to offend all of his parents' friends. In the end, neither private companies nor state-owned enterprises wanted him for any decent positions. In City A, he simply couldn't find a job. He would still complain at home. Those people are so full of themselves. Each one of them is practically a parasite on society. I refuse to be like them. I'd rather live a simple, unremarkable life than compromise my principles. I felt sorry for him and said, "Why don't you try furthering your studies? Let me handle supporting the family." So he ate my food and drank my drinks, then went back to school to study. During his PhD, he almost failed to graduate because he argued with his supervisor over a minor issue. I put aside everything I was doing, apologized to the supervisor, and even gave many gifts. He actually went behind my back and secretly reported the supervisor who accepted the gifts, which ended up causing an awkward situation that my father had to step in to resolve. He frowned at me, seemingly believing he was not at fault and even looking disappointed in me. "What you're doing is simply encouraging bad practices." This time I finally couldn't hold back. "What have you contributed to this family since we got married?" He sprang to his feet. "All you care about is money, money, money. How could I have married a woman like you? After our son was born, you weren't at home taking care of him, always out and about doing who knows what. That's just how I, lynching, am. If you're vain and crave power, go chase it yourself." Later, I regretted it a bit. I went too far, hurt his pride, and even lowered my head to apologize to make it up to him. When he was up for a promotion, I even swallowed my pride and went to beg my uncle. You could say that all the smooth sailing in his life was given by me. Without me, he wouldn't have become the renowned professor he is today. Of course, he has the luxury to be indifferent and aloof, because all the family expenses fell on my shoulders, and all the unsavory backdoor dealings were handled by me on his behalf. Of course, he never had to humble himself or compromise, because I bore all the grievances for him. But now that I'm dead, he's achieved success and fame. With his wife gone, it's the perfect time for him to reconnect with his first love. "Just sign here." I snapped back to reality. The staff member in front of me handed me a pen, gesturing for me to sign the marriage registration form. I glanced sideways. Lynching, sitting next to me, wore an indifferent expression, not a hint of joy about getting married on his face. He had been like this for 60 years of marriage, never once smiling at me. I gently touched my own face. Gone were the wrinkles from years of hard work for him. My skin was smooth and delicate again. My youth, which had been wasted on him, had returned. Taking a deep breath, I threw the pen back onto the table. "Let's not get married for now. I'm going back to prepare for the postgraduate entrance exam." For the first time, emotion flickered across Lin Cheng's usually stable, deadpan face. He frowned. "What are you making a fuss about?" 3 simple words turned me into the unreasonable one. In the past, whenever he frowned, I would relent and then try to cheer him up. It happened so many times that even I started to believe I must have been in the wrong, that I was the one who had wronged the ever-composed and unflappable Professor Lin. Given this rare chance at a second life, I'm done serving him. I couldn't be bothered to say more. I picked up my bag and left. Unexpectedly, Lin Cheng lost his composure and strode after me. "Wait, Zhao Min, let's talk this through." He grabbed my wrist, and my whole body shuddered. To be honest, that touch of his made me utterly sick to my stomach. I think I made myself quite clear just now. I shook off his hand and wiped mine on my pants. He noticed my movement, his pupils contracting slightly. "You're not marrying me anymore," I fought back the urge to curse. There were too many people here. Making a scene would land us in the news. I said, "I want to take the postgraduate entrance exam. You understand, right?" I stared straight at him. His face stiffened. "Ah, right, of course." I smiled with satisfaction and turned to walk out of the Civil Affairs Bureau. Bathed in the warm sunlight, I finally believed I was truly alive again. Wasn't a 60-year marriage just a nauseating cage for me? I didn't break up with him because I still had lingering feelings for him. He tormented me for 60 years. And I want to personally push him into the abyss. Saying I wanted to take the postgraduate entrance exam wasn't just an excuse. Having experienced my past life, I deeply realized how important it is for women to read more books. With my excellent grades and numerous awards from major competitions, getting a postgraduate recommendation was never an issue. But to marry him, I gave up my postgraduate recommendation, found a job early, and diligently supported the family, yet all I got in return was his talk of the swallow and the oriole flying apart. Such sophisticated insults, you wouldn't even understand them without reading more books. There's still over half a year left before the postgraduate entrance exam, so there's plenty of time. My mother called to ask about the situation. Wasn't it you who insisted on marrying him? What's going on? Hearing her voice after so long, my heart ached with bitterness. I was a foolish, love-struck fool who had caused my parents endless worry. Mom, I want to further my education while I'm young. It will be useful in the future. Thinking back to my previous life, when I faced a crucial promotion opportunity, my performance was outstanding, but I had to stop there because of my undergraduate degree. Fills me with such resentment that it makes my teeth itch. My parents were immensely relieved. They quickly sent me money and told me to sign up for a postgraduate exam prep course immediately, so as not to fall behind schedule. Even if I didn't work, my family's assets would be enough to support me for a lifetime, but Lin Ching had it rough. Without my support, he couldn't even afford to eat. There was no contact between us, and with his prideful nature, he wouldn't call me on his own. In my past life, I was anxious to death, but in this one, I've learned to let go. The more you indulge him, the more he acts cheap, really thinking he's something special. He didn't ask, I didn't inquire. It was a perfect match. Just over a week later, he couldn't hold back anymore. He called me, his voice cold and stiff. That's enough. Playing hard to get can be cute, but know when to stop. Too busy. The postgraduate exam is important. I replied casually. He was silent for a moment, then said, we can study together, and I can even help you. We had both graduated, couldn't stay in the dorm, and he didn't even have money for food, let alone rent a place. I almost laughed, but I remember my GPA was higher than yours, so I probably don't need that. He seemed to be holding back. I don't have money for food. How ironic. He never liked it when I brought up money, because I was the one who always solved the money problems. Now it was his turn to worry about money. It's fine. Having money doesn't mean you can eat it. I threw his own words back at him. You can eat something that doesn't cost money. Stung by my retort, he finally lost his temper. So what if your family has money? Why do you always have to step on people's sore spots? I sighed, with hands and feet. Why not just go find a job? That was a pointless thing to say. If he could bear the hardship of working a job, he wouldn't have been a poor wretch in the first place. Don't think I can't manage without you, Zhao Min. He hung up the phone resentfully. It turned out he really couldn't manage. He went to a fast food restaurant run by a friend. The friend, out of consideration for my sake, reluctantly hired him. One day, the friend complained to me. Lin Ching was working as a waiter delivering orders, and he mixed up a customer's drink. The customer complained a few times, and the words weren't exactly pleasant. He then poured the entire drink over the customer's head. I asked my friend to send me the video and personally uploaded it online. The video went viral within a day of being posted, garnering over 10 million shares and earning me the new nickname Fast Food Madman. My friend fired Lin Ching, but I didn't think it was enough. Deduct another month's salary as compensation for the store, my friend teased. What? No longer feeling sorry for your dear boyfriend? That's a whole month of work for nothing. If I let him get away with the money, I wouldn't be Zhao Min. Lin Ching was kicked out without a single cent. He used to have food and lodging provided, but now he had nowhere to go. He contacted me again. Min, I tried working, but it didn't work out. Every time he messed up a job in the past, he would call me in that greasy tone. I was completely bewitched back then. As soon as he spoke, my heart softened, and I ended up cleaning up his mess. It's fine, now that you're famous, you can do live streaming sales. How is that not considered making a name for yourself? Seeing that I wasn't taking the bait and was even mocking him, he gritted his teeth and said, how could I ever be with a woman like you? Whoever he loves, let him love. I can't be bothered to indulge his attitude anymore. Sure enough, he went looking for Xiaoyin, who was more his type. Xiaoyin attended a second-tier university across the street from ours, just 1 block away, but worlds apart in terms of academic standing. Lin Ching was a genius from the mountains, and Xiaoyin, having made it out through the exams, was considered quite outstanding herself. She was a year younger than Lin Ching, and he had put a lot of effort into helping her with her college entrance exams. I was too naive. I really believed in their pure friendship. As fate would have it, when I went back to the school to handle some business, Xiaoyin was bringing Lin Ching a meal, and the three of us ran into each other. Out of sight, out of mind. I lifted my foot to walk past them. Xiaoyin stopped me. Sister Min, isn't that enough? Brother Lin has suffered quite a bit lately. I raised my eyelids. Has being the other woman muddled your brain? You still dare to come up here and morally blackmail the rightful one? Upon hearing this, her eyes welled up with Tears, how can you say that? Lynching shielded her. If you have a problem, come at me, you're just too paranoid. Between her and me, it's completely innocent. I'm tired of saying this, I didn't want to curse either, but he walked right into it himself. What the hell are you talking about? Strong guy, stop pretending to be a good person. If I hadn't seen with my own eyes the sweet scene of their sunset romance after death, I would have been fooled by lynching again this time. Seeing them just annoys me. They've turned my perfectly good life into a joke. Thankfully, I was given a chance to start over, not sent straight to the underworld. Otherwise I'd be laughed at by my best friend and scolded by my parents to death. I left directly, not noticing Xia Yin's resentful glare. She is talented in singing and dancing, with a pure appearance, and was a campus belle-level figure in university. How could she not seek revenge after suffering such a huge grievance from me? She wrote a lengthy post of thousands of words in her social media circle, not once mentioning my name, yet every sentence was about me. It detailed how I abused my power and bullied an innocent girl from a small town. Her lackeys all helped repost it, including Lin Qing. He loves to champion justice so much, how could he not help his favorite woman? Lynching naturally draws attention, and this matter was posted online again. Netizens said, "We wronged the fast food madman. It turns out he was forced by his vain girlfriend, a talented man compelled to become a waiter. The crazy woman is too despicable, biting anyone she catches, slandering a pure and innocent good girl." This even escalated to discrimination from top-ranked students at prestigious schools against those from ordinary schools. It reached the ears of the school and my parents, and I was called in for a talk, with my mother rushing over to accompany me. How did things end up like this? After the talk, my mother pulled me aside, her face full of worry. A short essay without concrete evidence wouldn't lead to punishment from the school, but it could damage my reputation and hinder my plans for graduate school or civil service exams. Don't worry, the innocent shouldn't get caught in the vortex of self-justification. You and Dad don't need to intervene. I'll speak up if necessary. Xia Yin is a minor internet celebrity who occasionally live streams, earning money from viewer gifts. She deliberately guided the situation, leading to my personal information being leaked. My phone was flooded with calls, and my social media accounts were bombarded with abusive private messages. After returning, I pulled out my phone card and shut down all my social media platforms. I registered a new phone number and created a bunch of alternate accounts. I carefully examined Xia Yin's account. She often shows off gifts from fans, and I took screenshots for evidence. My best friend told me she has Xia Yin's WeChat. I noticed some items she posted in her social media feed look suspiciously like the ones that mysteriously disappeared from me. There were bracelets, earrings, and even the birthday gift Lin Qing gave me last year. Last year, he gave me a necklace. It wasn't expensive, but he saved up to buy it, which really touched me, so I wore it every day without fail. One day, after he came to my place, it went missing. I found the dorm conditions unsatisfactory, so I live off campus occasionally. I would invite Lin Qing over to my place to hang out and cook for him, but he was always reluctant, saying, "It's improper for an unmarried person to visit their partner's home." I thought to myself, it's not the Qing dynasty anymore, and we're in a normal romantic relationship. What's the big deal? After thinking back for a long time, I realized that whenever Lin Qing came to my house, some small pieces of jewelry would always go missing. I'm not particularly fond of tidying up, and my room is often messy, so if something got lost, it was no big deal. They weren't very valuable anyway, but for a boyfriend to steal my things to give to someone else, that's just disgusting. There's no need to give gifts on holidays. You don't lack these things anyway. Holidays are just consumer traps. Even though he said that, he never hesitated to accept the gifts I gave him. What he skimped on were all my gifts. Last year he bought me something, and I thought he had a change of heart. Little did I know he was just waiting to take it back. I never imagined I'd be so blind at such a young age. It was so obvious, yet in my past life I didn't notice a thing. Perhaps too blinded by overconfidence. Just as I was beating my chest and stomping my feet, lamenting my own foolishness, there was a knock at the door. Through the video doorbell, I saw Lin Qing standing outside with a whole bunch of things in hand. The doorbell had an intercom, but I wasn't willing to open the door. What a rare guest. In the past, he wouldn't come even if invited. He kept looking around, like someone getting a shady massage. And afraid of being spotted by an acquaintance, I had no idea that being with me was such a burden for him. Open the door first. I was speechless. Put the stuff down and leave. Min, I came to see how you're doing. He suppressed his temper and condescended. Slap someone and then give them a sweet date. This trick wasn't even invented by him, so why is he so sure I'd buy it? Not dead, you can rest assured. At most 3 sentences in, he couldn't keep up the act anymore. Enough, you've Already suffered retribution for slandering Eneen without cause. I'll have Eneen clear her name. Don't make the same mistake again. After all, we're still boyfriend and girlfriend. You should give up on the postgraduate entrance exam and marry me quickly. Settle down early. What's the use of a woman pursuing education? You need to have a family. What's the use of education? You need to have a family. I'll move in tomorrow. Let's try living together first. What a tremendous blessing. It made me laugh. How can you have such a big face? Do you think netizens will believe whatever you two say? What people want is evidence. You're so talkative, yet despite all your eloquence, aren't you still respectfully called the fast food madman? What people want is evidence. You're so talkative, yet despite all your eloquence, aren't you still respectfully called the fast food madman? He flushed with anger. I'm giving you a way out. But you refuse to take it. Do you really think your family stinking money can make this go away? Are you really playing the victim now? What hardship do you have? Isn't it Eneen who's been wronged? I didn't want to say more to him. It would be a waste of breath. I called security, and there was a commotion outside. He suddenly pressed against the door and shouted, Zhao Min, have you also come back? My heart skipped a beat. That statement was strange. My phone suddenly pushed me an article with the headline, People Can Awaken Memories Not Their Own When Under Extreme Stimulation. Clatter. The phone fell to the ground earlier. I had deliberately provoked him, and then security came and chased him away like a thief. He had never suffered such a profound humiliation before. Perhaps in a fit of rage, under extreme emotion, he awakened memories from a past life. Not long after he left, I opened my phone again and found that Xia Yin's entire moments feed had been hidden. He woke up too late. I had already kept everything. I suddenly felt a bit excited. Beating him by exploiting an information gap wasn't much of a feat. Wouldn't it be even more thrilling to trample him underfoot after he's been reborn? Thrilling under such fair conditions. What new tricks could my aloof and indifferent husband possibly come up with? Time was tight, so I quickly compiled a PDF with my spending records for lynching and screenshots of Xia Yin's social media posts. I like to keep receipts for everything I buy, so I can find evidence for every single thing he stole. One coincidence doesn't mean much, but if everything matches up, that tells the story. During those days when lynching and I were at odds, I wasn't idle either. I often followed him to see what he was up to. He's a complete freeloader through and through, and there's no changing him. When he couldn't mooch off me anymore, he latched onto Xia Yin. I secretly took quite a few photos. I went through all the gifts Xia Yin flaunted online, and each time, the most prominent spot was occupied by a luxury handbag. These aren't the kind of gifts an ordinary fan could afford. She's just a minor influencer with a few tens of thousands of followers, and her usual expenses aren't low either. Where did she get the money to buy so many bags? I sent pictures of all these bags to my best friend to look at. She's the most knowledgeable about this stuff and can tell real from fake at a glance. Holy crap. These are all genuine, but they look familiar. Wang Yu seems to have bought bags like these. I heard he was giving them to his girlfriend. She's always been the biggest gossip. Wang Yu has been our classmate since we were kids. He's a rich second-generation heir. I discovered that he had indeed posted about buying a bag for his girlfriend. After cross-checking one by one, it turned out to be almost spot-on. Lynching has been reborn, making him difficult to target. But Xia Yin probably can't withstand intimidation. After figuring it out, I inserted my original SIM card and openly added Xia Yin on WeChat. The words she sent over were dripping with smugness. Sister Minmin, are you here to apologize? It's okay, I forgive you. I smiled with a curl of my lips. I'm afraid it's you who will be kneeling and begging Daddy me to spare you. I sent the PDF over. Take a good look. You were just pretending to be pitiful and talking nonsense, but I have evidence, comma. Besides, you didn't expect that Wang Yu and I were elementary school classmates, did you? Would you like me to send him the details about you and lynching, comma, if he finds out you're using his money to support a man on the side? You know better than I do what he'll do to you. Soon after, the phone call came through. Zhao Min, what do you want? Her voice trembled uncontrollably, seeing that the fish had taken the bait. I said, first, don't tell lynching about what happened today. Second, apologize to me on all platforms. Okay, I promise you everything. I'll cut ties with Brother Qing. She pleaded repeatedly. Unfortunately, I never keep my word when it comes to green tea types. I embellished the details about lynching and Xia Yin, and sent all our chats and call records to Wang Yu. He was drinking outside, and it was said that he got so angry on the spot that he smashed the table. Now Xia Yin is going to have a really tough time. This second-generation heir not only forced Xia Yin to apologize to me, but also ordered her to go live and clarify everything about deceiving his feelings and framing me. Wang Yu stormed into Xia Yin's school. Due to the large amount of money involved, which constituted fraud. She was directly expelled. After striving with all her might to escape the mountains, she was back to square one in an instant. This time, Lin Qing learned his lesson and kept his mouth shut. The netizens' anger was all directed at Xia Yin, while he managed to stay beautifully hidden and wasn't too affected. After things had calmed down for a while, he issued a statement. It was the classic "I only saw her as a little sister," he recounted how he helped her get into college and maintained appropriate boundaries in their interactions afterward, avoiding overly intimate behavior. Surprisingly, some so-called friends even took his side and spoke up for him. He hasn't lived his life in vain after all. Lately, he's learned how to handle situations. Shedding his previous aloofness, he took the initiative to treat his roommates and club colleagues to a meal. The money was definitely taken from Xia Yin, so in a roundabout way, he used Wang Yu's money to clear his own name. Those who eat are softened by the meal. Having eaten, they couldn't help but say a few words in his favor. Netizens also judged him as an innocent, good man deceived by Xia Yin. That day, just after going downstairs, I saw Lin Qing leaning against the wall waiting for me. I looked back. The surveillance camera was only a meter away from here, and the security booth was also very close. He wouldn't dare do anything. What? I spoke first. Lin Qing approached. His aura different now. Minmin, I have to say you were a good wife who changed me a lot. Indeed, those techniques of yours were quite effective. He always had a high opinion of himself, and now that he's been reborn, his tail is practically wagging up to the sky. I gave a faint smile. Of course, stray dogs just scavenge what others leave behind. Should I chew it up and feed it to you? Don't be so sharp-tongued now. True to an 80-year-old man, Lin Qing was much more composed. You're just upset that I married Xia Yin after you passed away. I already know I was wrong. This time, we are united as husband and wife, which is naturally different from our previous life. He reached out his hand to me. I directly spat the chewed gum from my mouth into his palm. Stop flattering yourself. In my previous life, after failing to get promoted, I started my own business. Unexpectedly, it was very successful. Smooth sailing all the way, and even Lin Qing lived a wealthy life as a result. He is no longer that poor boy who crawled out of the mountains. He has grown accustomed to a good life and can't bear the slightest hardship. Otherwise, he wouldn't be pretending with me. Making a fortune through honest means is too hard. Living off a woman is much easier. That's the lesson he learned after living for 80 years. Lin Qing glared at me angrily, unsure whether to throw away the bubble gum in his hand or keep it. Zhao Min, this is the last time you give. I'll wait. He turned and left. He was like chewed up gum, useless and clingy. He couldn't afford to take a year off to prepare for the postgraduate entrance exam, so he had to find a job first. But what I didn't expect was that, through frugality and persistence, he managed to pursue and win over Miss Yang, a young lady from a prominent family, and naturally entered her family's company. Congratulations are in order. At least he has a pretty face to look at. A leopard can't change its spots. His tendency to be a social climber probably won't change for 3 lifetimes. Only by sending him to hell, to be reborn in the animal realm, will he stop causing harm to others. Miss Yang didn't care about the rumors and his past. She firmly believed there must be some misunderstanding, and her dear boyfriend was simply a good man who is content and without desire, never competing with others. She specifically sought me out for this, arranging to meet me at a cafe. Miss Zhao, you and Qing had some unpleasantness in the past, but all that is behind us now. She was referring to how, because of me, Lin Qing had been struggling to get by in the industry before. No company would take him. Now that the Yang Corporation has, he's not delivering results, and it's hard for Mr. Yang to justify the salary he's asking for, which is not low at all. After I got into graduate school, my advisor often took me into the research group to work on projects. Lin Qing, overestimating his abilities, always liked to compete with the group I was in. He's a good for nothing, yet he can't even see it himself. In his past life, that professor title of his was just a sham, bought with my money and connections. His so-called experience only works in labs and classrooms. It can't be scaled up for mass production, which is why Yang's company has been losing money all along. I always felt that after his rebirth, he's become blindly overconfident, maybe even less driven than before. There's no way around it, even with Yang's backing. He couldn't land a single deal. I set down my coffee, the rich bitterness spreading in my mouth. You're overthinking it. I just stopped letting him take shortcuts like I used to because now I have you. Of course, my parents feel sorry for me. After learning that Lin Qing was a despicable scoundrel, they didn't hesitate to interfere, and I didn't stop them. I couldn't let their efforts go to waste, their heartfelt intentions. Anyway, he and I are planning to get married, so let bygones be bygones. I apologize on his behalf for the wrongs he did. Miss Yang stood up and bowed. I also stood up, stepping aside to avoid accepting the gesture. Lin Qing has learned to be clever, knowing how to please people now. I glanced at the ring on her finger. She smiled sheepishly. Yes, he treats me very well. Would someone who's good to you give you a fake? I raised an eyebrow. My mother has a collection of items, including jewelry. So I learned through her example and have a higher appreciation for jewelry than the average person, I can guarantee. You, this is a fake, but he did put thought into it. Your fake is a high-quality imitation that ordinary people can't tell apart. Miss Yang awkwardly covered her finger. He must have been tricked. I'll talk to him when I get back. He's a man, if he can't even apologize himself. It's hard to imagine how a marriage to him could hold any hope. It was advice from someone who's been there, but unfortunately, she didn't take it. The next time I heard news about them, the whole city of A knew about it. Miss Yang got pregnant before marriage, which enraged Mr. Yang. He disapproved of his daughter's marriage to the poor young man. As a result, Lin Qing was bold enough to get his daughter pregnant, using the child to force his hand. I sighed repeatedly. The old him was at least a hypocrite, but now, having shed that skin, he's worse than a beast. He drove his luxury car and once again arrived at the entrance of my apartment building. Zhao Min, why don't you understand the principle of don't bully the young and poor? I sneered, as if looking at a dog struggling in its death throes, and whispered, you know what? I thought you still had a conscience, but I was overthinking it. Your words can't provoke me anymore. I'm not some green kid. Learning from you is right. Using every means to achieve my goal feels so good. His eyes were filled with a greedy light. I shook my head. Learning from me. He was already a bad seed to begin with. It was desire that lit the fuse in his heart, unleashing all the evil within. What does that have to do with me? For every demon, there is a higher path. He laughed. Zhao Min, I'm waiting for you to kneel and beg me. I watched his retreating figure. How could I possibly stand by and watch him devour the Yang family's legacy? What he didn't know was that I had accounted for everything he stole back then. I just held back from taking action. After being disciplined, Xia Yin has become much more obedient and is willing to come forward to testify. However, Lin Qing is as tenacious as a cockroach, and Miss Yang will protect him for the sake of the child in her womb. That day, we met again at the same coffee shop as before. This time, I was the one who asked her out. She is simple-minded and holds no ill will toward me, her predecessor. It's clear she is a pitiful girl who genuinely loves that scoundrel. When is the wedding date set for? She smiled shyly. The 15th of next month. I nodded and handed her my phone. Her face instantly turned pale. Miss Zhao, I can return all the money to you. Please, I beg you. I tapped my fingers on the table. I don't lack this money, but I don't want such scum to remain at large. What will you gain by marrying him and having this child? Because of a father who is a legal offender, the child will lose the opportunities they deserve. The more I spoke, the paler her face became, almost to the point of collapse. Take care of yourself too. I'm not targeting you or the unborn child. This kind of person cannot be kept around, for your sake and mine. Just as she was about to continue pleading with me, I handed her a craft paper envelope. I didn't want to upset you further, but today it must be made clear. She flipped through the documents over and over, then slammed them heavily on the table, burying her head in her hands and weeping. How could he do this to me? I so in love with him. Lin Qing had tasted a life of luxury, and his appetite had grown. These were the dual contracts he signed with the Yang family, siphoning off hundreds of millions of funds from them. If I hadn't discovered through my covert investigation that the Yang family's accounts were problematic, the blame would have fallen on Miss Yang's father. Once her father was implicated, her entire life would truly be at Lin Qing's mercy. Even after all this, you still want to shield him. I gently shattered the last line of defense in her heart. Blinded by love, she still couldn't disregard all principles in my previous life. My tragic fate was exchanged for hers, yet I felt no relief or joy now. Earnestly persuading her and pulling her out of the mire was also a way to save myself. At that time I first reported him to the police on charges of theft. With both witnesses and material evidence present, he only showed up after being summoned several times, arriving late and unhurried. His careless demeanor suggested he still had the Yang family backing him up from behind. Zhao Min, don't waste your effort. My time is precious. His entire outfit had been upgraded by more than one level. He bought counterfeit goods for Miss Yang. She gave him her whole heart, while he bought her fake goods. I really didn't expect that, even though we were in a relationship at the time, you could be so stingy and make such a big deal out of such a small matter. His act of treating money like dirt came up again. I'm willing to return all the money to you. Just consider it for the child about to Be born, pray for blessings, it has to be said. After entering society, he hasn't learned anything of real substance, but he's mastered the art of being two-faced to a T. Everything here is being recorded. Please choose your words carefully. You think you still have money, still such a dreamer. I clapped my hands. Lin Chung took a few steps back, his face filled with shock and doubt. What did you say? He's become much sharper. But unfortunately, it's too late. Miss Yang walked in. You think a child can take over the Yan family? I wish I could tear out your tendons and drink your blood. She stepped forward and slapped him several times directly. It completely stunned him. He covered his heavily swollen cheek and asked in disbelief, "What's wrong with you? We've already seen through your scheme." I threw the documents in front of him. Although Lin Chung was foolish, he still had some cunning tricks up his sleeve, as the saying goes. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. He had long prepared an escape route abroad, planning to abscond with the money and leave the mess for the Yan family, thus evading justice rather than rashly arresting him and alerting the enemy. It was better to use the theft incident to lure the snake out of its hole, giving him no chance to flee. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Lin Chung knelt on the ground and said, "You plotted against me. Very well. If you had known today, why did you do it back then?" I lowered my gaze to look at him. He burst into wild laughter, suddenly stood up, pulled out a small knife, and lunged at me. "If you won't let me live in peace, then you die." A police officer reacted swiftly, kicking him away with a single blow. His knife flew from his hand, grazing my cheek. It didn't hurt, but a small bead of blood seeped out and trickled down to my neck. This was hardly even an injury for me, but for him, it was adding crime to crime. Through the efforts of my parents and the Yang family, he was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment, destined to grow old and die behind bars. A person as calm as a chrysanthemum. Hypocrisy is still better than a wicked heart. He never expected that his cleverness would backfire, leaving him worse off than in his previous life. Miss Yang suffered a major setback in love, saying she might never have the courage to marry again. She loves children and couldn't bear to part with this one. No matter who the child's father is, it will always be your child. Nothing can change that. If you want it, keep it. Later, she took my advice and gave birth to the child, who grew up healthy and strong. After repeated persuasion from my advisor, I chose to pursue a PhD. During my studies, I started a business. With experience from my past life and solid accumulated knowledge, by graduation, the company was already on track. It was on the right path. Only then did I realize that I could have had everything all along. On my way home from work that day, I encountered an old Taoist priest in tattered clothes on the street. I casually bought him some food at a convenience store. He took it and began devouring it ravenously. Suddenly, he looked up at me, his dim, aged eyes gleaming sharply. "You are someone who returned from the underworld with unresolved grievances." I neither confirmed nor denied it. He smacked his lips and continued, "And you brought someone back with you. Ha ha ha, fascinating, fascinating. An eye for an eye. Grievances repaid with grievances, vengeance with vengeance. No one can escape, even in death. You are dragged back to suffer torment. Such is the cycle of the world." As soon as the words were spoken, he vanished. I wasn't afraid, just felt a sense of wonder. Since then, I've always tried